Welcome to another episode of Executive Sessions, where we discuss trends and developments in the industrial manufacturing space. I'm your host, Clayton Gullett, and we've got an awesome show lined up for you today. Merging two companies can provide a lot of advantages for both, but the process is full of unique challenges. Today, we'll discuss the specifics of the merger of two portfolio companies at MiddleGround Capital that was part of an investment strategy called a continuation vehicle, and how that deal was executed with the help of my guest today. To my right, you all know him, it's Mr. Ryan McComb. He's the managing director. Wow, it's your title gets longer every time I read these scripts. The managing director of the transaction team at MiddleGround Capital and the deal lead on the Castle Banner CV. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Glad to be back.
Do you fit all of that on a business card? How does that work?
Just managing director transaction team.
Oh, okay. Well, then there we go. And then, for first timer to the show, it's Dan the Man, Mr. Dan Stoettner, the CEO of Castle Metals. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thanks, Clayton. I'm glad to be here with you, gents. Looking forward to our discussion today.
Yeah, hopefully you feel the same by the time we finish the episode.
I hope.
Well, before we kick off, Dan, tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, and what's kept you in the business all these years?
Sure. Yeah, I can talk a little bit about myself. I've been in the metals business, Clayton, for about 34 years now. I've had a really great experience in this business. I made a lot of great people over the years, a lot of good friendships and certainly professional relationships. And worked as a metallurgist for a long time at U.S. Steel, worked for Worthington Steel for a long time, and then I found my way over to Banner Industries about 17 years ago when the company was a much smaller company, and was just very fortunate to be a part of the team that was able to continue to build that company and grow the organization through greenfields, through mergers and acquisitions, which I know we're going to talk about. And through just organic growth as well. So it's been a very fun ride over the years. And so in that 17 years with Banner, then culminating with the merger with Castle, which I know we're going to talk about in a second here. And certainly with the relationship with MiddleGround over the last 5 years, it's been a wild ride. It's been wonderful. They've been very supportive of the team. We've grown very substantially. So happy to be here today.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad you made it onto the show, and that's quite the resume. Ryan, is your resume that impressive?
No, not that long.
Oh, okay. Well, your title is, but I mean, your title's as long.
I got a better title, longer title. Yeah,
yeah, it's true. All right, Dan. Well, let's kick it off. The first question is to you. Can you tell us a little bit about what Castle Metals does and the position it's currently in within its industry?
Sure. So Castle Metals, for folks who don't know, is very much an iconic service center that's been around for, if you can believe it, over 130 years. So
wow.
It's been a company that I've known very well. Being in the business for 34 years, I've come to know Castle very well over the years. So basically, Castle is a processor and distributor of specialty metals. We have 31 locations now with the combination of with the Banner companies going on about 6 months now. So we are a little over 6 months. So we have 31 locations around the world. We're in 7 different countries: the U.S., Mexico, Canada, China, Singapore, and France. So that's 6 different companies, I guess. So we have about 1,000 folks now on the team. And if you look at it, we're ranked about the 20th largest service center in North America. So considering that there's thousands of service centers across the country here, to be in the top 20, I think is quite a testament and quite an achievement for the team.
Yeah, good. To top 20. Yeah, that's really impressive.
And we serve 3 different end markets. Clayton, for what it's worth, is we have an aerospace business, we have a medical business, and an industrial business. So all 3 of those businesses, keep our teams busy, and each has their own challenges. There's a lot of commonality amongst the businesses, but each is unique in its own right.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's quite the spread between aerospace and then medical. What was the third one?
Industrial.
That's quite an impressive resume for Banner as well. All right. I need to work on my professional stuff here a little bit. Ryan, you ready for yours?
I am.
All right. Well, let's dive in, bud. Could you tell us about Banner Industries and what do you see as the benefits of their merger with Castle?
Yeah, I mean, so historically, when we first acquired Banner, we knew that we wanted to add, certain geographies, capabilities, different end markets, different processing capabilities. And so, Banner was really, we took the initial platform back in December of 2019, and we did 2 strategic add-ons to Banner to add capabilities. And then when we saw the Castle opportunity, it was really about, how can we grow our footprint? Is it strategic from being able to stock metals that we have in our supply chain that they don't have in their locations and vice versa? So you're expanding your white space in the market. What processing capabilities does Castle have that we don't, and vice versa, so that we can cross-sell our processing capabilities? It's, do we have duplicative footprints in certain locations where we can extract synergies from facility consolidations? Do we have common metals that we can leverage our buy to get sourcing savings with suppliers? So it's really about looking where 1 + 1 = 3, and kind of attacking it from all angles of where can we improve both businesses by these two businesses coming together.
So I heard you mention a term. Did you say white spaces?
Mm-hmm.
Can you define what that is for our listeners who may not know?
Yeah, it's just pockets of the market that you're not currently serving that you could be serving. So additional revenue opportunities that you just haven't gone after.
All right. That was definitely for all of you who didn't know and not for me. So just,
And I give like a little bit, I'll give an example of that, right? Is Banner has always focused on their medical business primarily in North America. Banner didn't have any facilities over in the APAC region or in Europe, but Castle did. So Banner could stock some of their medical product in Castle's locations over abroad and start selling that same product into a completely different customer base because of the geographic opportunity.
Okay. Well, so how do you identify opportunities for merging companies like, Banner and Castle?
Yeah, I mean, look, we obviously like companies that are playing within the same market, right, and have some of the same overlapping capabilities. But we're usually looking for companies that add new capabilities in high growth end markets. We look for companies that add new geographies that we're not currently serving today. We look for companies that help us maximize our VCP opportunity, right? So where can we look for sourcing savings by consolidating our buy? Where can we look for cross-selling opportunities between the different product sets? Where can we look at extending vendor terms to improve free cash flow? Ultimately, is this going to make it a better business when we go to sell a business, or is it not? So we're looking at a bunch of different criteria for that.
Okay, Ryan, on the private equity side of things, the merger of Castle and Banner was done through an investment strategy called a continuation vehicle. What is a continuation vehicle, and why did MiddleGround Capital use this strategy for Banner Industries and Castle Metals?
Yeah, so a continuation vehicle is really a separate pool of capital that you raise to give a particular investment kind of a new time horizon or ownership period, right? So Banner was an asset that we held in our first fund. Banner was about 4 years into our hold. And so we decided that we needed to raise a new pool of capital to give us a longer investment horizon, but also because our current fund was out of equity. In Fund 1, we had already deployed all of it. And so we wanted a fresh pool of capital to be able to effectuate the merger with Castle, right? We had to raise significant new equity to be able to complete that merger, to buy Banner out of Fund 1 and put it into a new pooled capital pool.
So why is this popular among private equity firms?
Yeah, so I think a lot of sponsors choose to do it because they have assets that they identify in their funds that are really good performers, where they feel very confident in the management team's ability to execute, where they have not been able to execute everything that they have wanted to for one reason or another. Maybe they ran out of capital and so they couldn't go acquire that asset they're looking to acquire. Maybe they didn't have the capital from that fund in particular to go greenfield new facilities in two exploding markets where there's a lot of growth opportunity, right? And so it's really about how do you maximize value for the shareholders? For instance, I'll relate it to Banner and Castle, right? We had already done multiple add-ons at Banner. We had already executed a lot of our value creation initiatives. We have executed on organic growth. And we were at a position where we were willing to sell Banner into an open market transaction. While we were considering doing that, Castle Metals became available to be bought. And when we kind of reran the math of what it looked like if Banner and Castle were to merge and we were to extract all the synergies, there was a lot more that could be done to make both those businesses a lot more profitable. And so we decided, hey, it's not the right time to sell Banner, but we need to raise this new pool of capital to buy Banner out of Fund 1 and to actually purchase Castle Metals and merge them together.
Okay, this one's open to both of you. Dan, I'm really curious to get this perspective from you. From a portfolio company perspective, how does being joined in a CV differ from a standard merger?
Yeah, so from our perspective, very candidly, Clay, we really didn't see, much difference, quite honestly. And from our perspective, being put into a CV meant that we were being able to lengthen our relationship with MiddleGround, as Ryan mentioned there, right? So from our perspective, I think there was an advantage to be put into the continuation vehicle than perhaps a standard merger, where it would be working with a new team, where we would have to understand, a slightly different playbook. Being with MiddleGround for 5 years now, we know each other very well, right? We know the expectations. We have confidence in MiddleGround. MiddleGround has confidence in the management team here. So from many respects, going into the continuation vehicle just meant that it was sort of a game on, right? Just we know the playbook. We just have a larger team with which to execute that playbook now. And from our perspective, actually, it was a very good outcome for us.
So, I mean, you've got the merging teams. You've got good support, it sounds like, from MiddleGround. So that's always nice. That makes things a lot easier. Well, let's jump into to another one here. What particular challenges does a continuation vehicle pose at the company level?
I mean, I don't think the continuation vehicle poses any specific challenges. I think it's kind of a common challenge with any merger that you do, right? Our merger in particular was part of a continuation vehicle. I mean, there's different types of continuation vehicles, right? So there's continuation vehicles where there's no merger. So in that instance, it would have been just us selling Banner out of Fund 1 into a continuation vehicle. This continuation vehicle was a bit unique because it was a simultaneous sell Banner out of Fund 1 into the continuation vehicle and merge it with this other entity, right? And I think with any merger, not specific to continuation vehicles, just making sure you get the company cultures right and making sure that the different team members at the different companies are able to come together and get on board with a common initiative and just be open-minded to changing the way that they do things is incredibly important, right? There were certain areas where you got to talk the team members into taking the best from both companies and getting rid of the worst from both companies to create one common solution. Right. Like, for instance, there were certain things that Castle was doing better than Banner that we've adopted at Banner, and there were certain things that Banner was doing better than Castle that Castle adopted, right? So it's really taking the best of both and the worst and putting them out.
I'd build on that, Ryan, and to what Ryan said, Clayton, is we use the phrase a lot, best idea wins, right? Best idea wins. It was not a my way or the highway. This is how we do it. I mean, there's some things that we needed to align on relative to, here's the VCP, here's the 3 to 5 year look, right? Here's the Hoshin plan, here's the 1 year look. But we've been all about, best idea wins. It doesn't matter whose idea it was, right? We just want to win together as a team. And to Ryan's point, right, this wasn't a merger for merger's sake, right? There were just so many synergies identified and so much leverage identified and so many, force multipliers that we've been able to implement as a result of the merger that just made a lot of sense here, right? It'd be different if we were just sort of snapping two companies together and putting them together, but sort of Banner stopped where Castle began and Castle stopped where Banner began. There was just a little bit of overlap from a customer perspective. There's a lot of insourcing from processing, honestly, that we were able to bring in-house that Castle was sending outside or Banner was sending outside. And now we were able to utilize the capabilities of each company. So there were just so many levers to throw here that made so much sense for us.
It is really cool to see how you bring two different companies, all of these different people together who have all of these various life experiences, professional experiences, and so on. And then the fact that everybody's on the same page to say, like, okay, well, we're going to look at the greater good instead of just saying, like, well, it's my way or the highway, or I've been doing this since before you were born, or any that type of attitude can be so toxic and just hinder progress. It's really, I'm really glad that you guys didn't have to deal with that, because that always makes it more complicated. I just curious though, Ryan, how do you manage like the SEC or conflicts of interest and pricing?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, I mean, we got an independent fairness opinion done. So we hired a third-party accounting firm to basically come in and validate, kind of what our marketing price was in the CV process. Independent firm said this valuation looks fair. From that standpoint, it helped give our LPs comfort that we were not selling Banner at an unfair price to the CV. It gave the CV investors comfort that they were not paying a premium for this asset either. And so It's really about getting a third party involved to validate that the price that's being paid by both sides is a fair price for that asset. So it's an extra step that you don't have done in a normal way market auction process. And then that's kind of what we needed. And then you get a bunch of consents, and there's a lot of legal kind of red tape that you have to navigate so that, you do it by the book and you don't, create an unfair situation for people on either side of the table, and to make sure that it moves smoothly without having to get the SEC involved.
Yeah, I would say if you could avoid them, that would probably be the best. Well, okay. How do you manage a merger when it takes place? This is open to both of you because I'm curious about the CEO's perspective. But actually, Dan, why don't you kick that one off?
Sure. So you can really put yourself in the shoes of both organizations, right? You can put yourself in the shoes of the Castle folks and the Banner folks. Everybody wants to understand, what's next, right? What's happening next, right? I mean, it's a big announcement. It's a big change. As I mentioned, Castle had been around since 1890, and the Banner team Banner was founded in 1960, so 60 years of history on that side of the business. So really, it was about communication, right? So we took an opportunity, Clayton, to visit all 31 locations, for instance. We had town hall meetings with every single location. We went to China, we went to Canada, we went to France, all the facilities in Mexico, and tried to look people in the eye, let them ask questions, give very open and honest and candid answers. And so that was very helpful in the beginning to, help establish the playbook going forward, right? We shared the VCP. We shared, here's the vision for the next 3 to 5 years. So we were very open and transparent with the teams going forward. We did not have all the answers. Very honestly, it's been a challenging market, as we all know, the industrial space for the last year. So some of the initial plays, we had to call an audible at the line, right? So we're doing things a little bit different. But we've been tried to be very candid and open with folks and give everybody a seat at the table. And I think just circling back one more time to the idea of best idea wins, right? Everyone can buy in more, right? When they know they're going to be heard, when they know their ideas can be heard, and it's again just not something that's sort of jammed down their throat, right? So that was one thing that was very key up front, was to be able to communicate and sort of lay out the path forward, because everybody wants to understand the path forward, right? It's uncertain times, and if there's some clarity from the folks at MiddleGround and the executive team, it makes things go a heck of a lot smoother.
I would say so. Ryan, did you have anything you wanted to throw in?
No, I mean, I'd echo everything Dan said. And I mean, for us, it's also really important that, the integration of the two businesses does not start the day we close. It usually starts actually well before we close, right? So,
oh, really?
Okay. At Castle, we actually had a good, we had to wait for some regulatory stuff to clear over in Mexico for closing purposes. But we had like a 3-month timeline between, when we had an agreed upon deal and when the funding was actually to come in place, where the Banner management team worked hand in hand with the Castle's team for 3 months before we took ownership of the business, further refining that playbook and getting everybody on board even before the first day that they were actually merged entities. So we tried to, even in normal way processes that we're acquiring, of companies that we're acquiring, we tried to be very collaborative with the management team during the confirmatory due diligence period so we could all hit the ground running with a fast start.
That really makes a difference, man. Planning ahead and working on that integration as soon as you can versus waiting until it's like, oh, okay, well, the merger's done. Okay, now let's go do it. You're a lot more productive and you're ready to hit the ground running, it sounds like.
Yep.
Dan, okay, just out of curiosity, what challenges did you face when Castle and Banner combined?
Again, a lot largely what I mentioned earlier, Clayton, as far as just, uncertainty. Folks want to understand the path forward. And for us, you can appreciate that, information is key, right? The information flow is key. Timely information is key. And we came into this with 3 different ERP systems. So that was quite a challenge for us, very candidly, and still is, right? So, Castle's been around for a long time, so has Banner, right? We have different ways of communicating. So it would be nice, and eventually that is the plan, to get on one platform so we can communicate more readily, more quickly, especially in a dynamic environment like this. But that has been a real challenge for us. The team's done great. Everyone recognizes it's not perfect, right? But everyone, wants to win. And, we have workarounds. We figure it out. But that has been a real challenge for us to be able to, get data in a timely fashion and make the best decisions, right? So, and Ryan and the MiddleGround team have done a lot to help, supplement our efforts here and to support us in that manner. And eventually, we'll go to that new platform, which will make it a heck of a lot easier.
So, okay, so you guys have talked about some of the benefits here with mergers, taking the best of the two philosophies on both sides, bringing them together, and kind of incorporating that into your culture. What do you do if you're in a spot where things don't mesh and people are brash and people don't want to it's my way or the highway type? Well, how do you manage that?
I mean, look, sometimes you got to do the best you can, right? And you got to see who's willing to get on board and kind of, it's less so about my way or the highway. It's more so if people are willing and open to change, right? And as Dan mentioned, it's usually the way we take it is best idea wins is a really good way to put it. It's not Banner is performing better than you guys, so everything that Banner is doing is better than what Castle is doing. Adopt what Banner does. And no, it's dissecting it one by one. What is each one doing? What's their strengths? What's their weaknesses? How do we cross-pollinate and share best practices across the organization? And sometimes you find people that they're used to doing something their way forever, and they're not even open to new ideas, even if it means the business is going to perform better and everybody's going to win. And those are the people that we don't have room for in the organization. So unfortunately, sometimes they need to get off the bus.
Well, yeah, I mean, I said you got to look at the greater good, and I guess the big takeaway is if you're one of those people, you should change your attitude. My God, you'd probably be more pleasant to be around anyway. All right, so just out of curiosity for both of you guys, what advice would you have for business owners debating whether to go through a merger or not?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, mergers can be wonderful things, but you have to clearly define before you go through a merger a couple of things. One, what is the actual benefit, right? Clearly define what you're trying to accomplish. Are you trying to add new capabilities to your business that you don't have today that you might have to invest a lot of money to get? Are you trying to expand into new markets that you're not in from a geography standpoint? Clearly define what you're trying to accomplish and have a high bar to make sure that what you're acquiring is actually, or what you're merging with is going to let you achieve what your objectives are. Number two is spend a lot of time during the merging process before the business is closed of getting to know, who you're getting in bed with, right? Mergers don't work as well if, the two management teams, everybody doesn't get along, right? Mm-hmm. Culture toxicity can kill a merger and kill the productiveness of a merger. So make sure you're spending time with the other team that you're getting involved with. Make sure that you guys have common values, common morals, common business ethics, and just do your research up front.
Yeah, it always pays to be prepared. Dan, just out of curiosity, is there what's the perspective of a CEO? What would you give? What advice would you give business owners?
Yeah, I would echo everything Ryan said there, and I'd just like to key in on one thing that he mentioned there when he mentioned the word culture, right? Because there's that old adage out there that, culture eats strategy for lunch, right? So you can have the best strategy going in, right? But if your cultures aren't able to mesh, right, and you're not able to bring everybody together in one culture, I think that is a recipe for disaster. And in this particular instance, and I say it all the time, the team's tired of hearing me say it, but I've been very pleased with how similar the cultures were. The culture at Castle and the culture at Banner are very similar. Banner is maybe a little bit more entrepreneurial in a smaller organization. Castle was a larger organization, had a lot more process in place, and we've been. But the cultures behind those two descriptions I gave there were very similar, right? So it's been really rewarding to see, as we talked about, that we were able to bring some of the Banner, good practices, marry them up with the Castle good practices in a culture that was very similar, and there has not been a lot of clashing. Everybody wants to win. I think that's very important. So to Ryan's point, you got to understand the cultures that you're bringing together before you start, pulling any levers.
We've shot many of these episodes. That is the first time I've ever heard culture eats strategy for lunch.
Yeah. I think it was Deming that said that. I think it was him.
Dan, we were talking before the show started. Dan and I were hanging out, and we were chatting and just kind of prepping for the show. But Dan and I were talking about a movie called Crimson Tide, and we were talking about that. It has Gene Hackman and Denzel Washington in it. I don't know if you've ever seen it or not, Ryan, but
I think, is that like a military movie?
Yeah, it's about a
like
nuclear
a
submarine.
warship or nuclear submarine. Yeah, so I've seen it. I've seen it.
But Dan, you were talking to me specifically about some of the leadership qualities that you've carried through your life, and the reason why I bring this up is you can get leadership qualities anywhere. It doesn't have to be something that you earn in the field. And on that note, Dan, can you tell us a little bit about like the leadership skills that you were telling that you adopted?
Sure. Yeah, we were talking earlier about the movie, and obviously two very good actors in the movie, great script, great storyline. But I was mentioning to Clayton that if you really watch that movie, I thought there's a lot of good leadership lessons in the movie. And one thing that has always resonated with me was there was the one scene where, unfortunately, there was a terrible accident on the submarine, and I think the sailor actually lost his life. And it was just interesting to me that Gene Hackman, he was the captain of the submarine at that point. So right during the process of trying to treat this poor injured sailor there, he calls a drill. He calls it like a sub-wide drill to prepare for impending disaster, right? And the folks are looking at him like, Captain, what are you doing here? We have this situation that we're trying to deal with, and you're calling a drill? And he actually said something to the effect of, this is exactly the time to call that drill, right? You call the drill when you least expect it. You call the drill when you're least prepared for it. So this is the time you take to get better and improve upon things. And I was mentioning to that because that's always resonated with me, especially like in a market like this, right? Market's going a little sideways on us, going a little sideways for us. And it's easy to lament and, boo-hoo, woe is us. Let's just wait for it to get better. But these are the times, right, where you got to be working on your process. You got to be working on the things so you get ready for it, right, when the market does go back again, because it's coming back. But you got to take that leadership lesson that I learned in Crimson Tide, right? And now's the time you got to be working harder. Now's the time you got to be pressing harder and get ready for when things go well. So that always resonated with me. We were just chuckling about it a little bit before the broadcast.
See, it does pay to watch television. That's the takeaway from this episode.
That's what I tell my wife. Exactly.
Okay, closing thoughts. Ryan, kick us off.
Yeah, no, I'd just say, look, we discussed a lot of topics today. There's obviously significant benefits to doing a CV for both private equity funds, but also for the management teams that work with those private equity funds. A lot of incremental value can be created with that product. I'd also say, mergers and acquisitions are great when they're done right? But you have to really spend the time mapping out what you're trying to accomplish, the specific goals, and really do a check on culture to make sure the cultures of the two organizations fit prior to moving forward with the merger.
Dan the man, closing thoughts.
No, I couldn't have said it better, really. You don't want to merge for just the sake of merging, right? If the culture's not there and there's not enough leverage there, just getting bigger is not the answer.
Two well-spoken gentlemen on a wonderful podcast with an excellent host. I'm just teasing. These guys are great. I really appreciate you guys being out here. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Executive Sessions. Gosh. Blah, blah, blah. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast and our audio streaming services and also our YouTube channel. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss any of the awesome content that we drop. A big thanks again to Mr. Ryan McComb and Mr. Dan the Man Stoettner for taking time out of their busy schedules to be here with us today. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Appreciate it, Dan. You too, buddy. That'll do it here for us. Join us next time when we discuss more about trends and developments in the industrial manufacturing space. We'll see you next time.